Hello, everyone, and welcome to Earp Sister Feels. This is our episode number 37. My name is Kevin, and on this video, we're going to be discussing the Wynonna Earp episode from season 4, episode number 10, Life Turned Her That Way. Before we get started, some quick introductions so you know who's who here. Please welcome in Rita.
Hi.
Jill.
Hello.
Alyssa.
Hey, everyone.
Kylie.
Hello.
Terry Ann.
Hey.
And Jess.
Hi.
All right. Well, folks, if you've watched this episode, you know this video is going to be a lot. So take that as your trigger warning. Get your tissues ready. We might go in a lot of directions. How about that opening scene between the sisters, huh? Wasn't that fun?
I love the word fun.
Not the word I would have chosen, but okay.
Out of bed and stumble to the woods.
I will say we did. It is a lot of kind of the stuff we've discussed might happen between the sisters. I think if we're going quotes already, one I pulled was not all of us had the luxury of a happily ever after.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think that's kind of sums up how I've been seeing Wynonna like during this time of just like Waverly getting her happily ever after, and Wynonna's just like, that's nice for you, but I'm still here doing what I've been doing for a while. So as painful as that scene was to my heart, I do feel like it was nice to actually see them tell each other in a way some of the stuff they've been feeling, because as we've said before, they've not been doing some of that. They've been keeping a lot of that, or at least Waverly has been like, everybody be happy, and like not necessarily touching on some of that stuff. So it was an interesting way to start the episode.
That's for sure.
A bang.
It was painful. I mean, it took my breath away just watching the two of them throw just these hurtful things that they knew would land, that they knew would stick and they knew would hurt, and they just let loose. And it was just, I can't, I still haven't gone through and really processed if I think one was right or wrong. I personally, my initial reaction, I thought Wynonna was more unfair than Waverly was in that. But I see Alyssa doesn't think that's.
Oh, I'm intrigued. No, go on. I'm intrigued.
Only because the quote you brought up, Kylie, about like not all of us have the luxury of happily ever after, but that's not Waverly's fault, right? Like she did nothing wrong.
For sure. Yeah.
To fall in love and have a happily ever after. So it's like, why, it's that's why I was like, it's sort of unfair. It's understandable why Wynonna's angry with her, but it's also at the same time a little unfair because it's not like Waverly did anything wrong, though Jolene would have her believe she did.
Well, I mean, I don't even think that Waverly believes that she's at happily ever after yet. I don't think that she really believes that she's there, which I think when we get to Jolene, all of that kind of comes out. I also don't think that Wynonna thinks that she likes killing too much, which we also see because we see her grieve with Rachel. So both of them say these unfair things to each other, which I can't remember in the group chat who mentioned 104, but I know that in episode 104, when they are talking over the sake, they both say some unfair things to each other, and we kind of relive that a little here.
Mm-hmm. And even Waverly said it last episode. She's like, we're so close to being happy.
Mm-hmm. Not there.
Yeah, not there.
It's funny though. It's funny, and I don't know if this is because I've always related a bit more on the Wynonna side when we do these talks and stuff, but it's funny when I watched that scene, I was kind of like, good for you, Wynonna, for saying some of the stuff that you've been like not saying, but then at the same time, I could see why now that you guys have, Jill, you said like that, some of the stuff that you said, I was like, you know what, maybe I'm looking at it from a very specific Wynonna side, and I'm not really seeing the Waverly side when I watch it. And so for me, I didn't see it as harsh, even though I knew that it was harsh. It was more like, I think it was, for me, it was like a breaking point for Wynonna in some ways, is how I saw it. And like, especially like her saying what she said about like, how come when you kill a Clanton, like, yeah, like it's not a problem, but when I kill a Clanton, it's a problem. Like, to me, that was like, okay, finally, like someone said something about that. Like, and it is unfortunate that it has to be at Wynonna, but like, again, it makes sense as Wynonna because everybody else is fine with, you know, it be when Waverly does it, but not Wynonna doing it. So like, for me, I felt like it was a moment of like, Wynonna finally like hitting a breaking point and saying all these things. And yes, it's not fair to Waverly in any way, shape, or form, but like, clearly it's things that she's been holding in that needs to finally like be said and out there in the world in hopes of like moving forward. But I do think, like, as someone who has a sister, like, you know how to push the other sister's buttons. Like, you know the exact thing to say to either end the conversation or to escalate the conversation. And I think there was a lot of that going on as well.
That was not me disagreeing with what you were saying, Jill, more just like that's a perspective I didn't have watching that scene. I thought they were both pretty venomous
Yeah.
on their own ends.
They were very
So,
venomous.
you know, it was, yeah, so I just didn't see that one was worse than the other.
I think I was looking at it
Um,
more, you know, in terms of like, when I say unfair, it's like, I think that, that I think probably that Waverly saying that I expected a few more years of a happy drunk, and then essentially accuse them of being daddy. You know, I went, okay, that's a little out of bounds. That's probably unfair. But you know, but I think generally what, you know, what Waverly was saying, she had a reason to be, like, a legitimate, true reason why she was feeling the way she was feeling and why she was angry. Whereas Wynonna, again, I can understand it, but again, the anger was misdirected, in my opinion. Misdirected at Waverly when it's not Waverly's fault. But she had nowhere else to spit it at, so that's where she.
I feel like we've been talking like the whole season about like this inevitable conversation between the two. And I think that like the sort of theme of inevitability has like finally hit them, because Wynonna says like, oh, I gotta get my quote out. I can't remember it. She says that there's always a big and bad coming to, you know, essentially kill the people that she loves, and that she is like doing everything that she can to prepare for it, so that but she's isolated herself in doing so. And Waverly, and I think if we look back all the way to season 1, you know, and especially with some of the words that Jolene says, you know that she fears being the big bad. And she does everything that she can to prevent it from like coming out. So there's this, she's like shut herself away and been like super positive and like seeking all of the happiness, because she knows that the thing that Wynonna is more urgently getting is very likely and terrifyingly her.
Yeah. And like in this scene that we're talking about where Waverly's like, or maybe that's what you've been telling yourself, Wynonna, because you like it a little too much. Like the way that she says it and like she paused, it's like almost as if she's like saying that's about herself too. Because, you know, we saw 2 episodes ago when they were under the fog trance, like how she liked hurting people.
Well, and she tells Doc that being you know, like removed of all feelings from everyone was like heaven. He says it's like hell,
and he's been to hell.
And she said no, it was like heaven. So I do have a quote though, based from that. I did some digging in season 1, because Willa, my favorite Willa, she asks Wynonna, when Wynonna is describing revenants to her, She asks if there's angels, and then Wynonna makes a glib joke, and Willa says, "How can you think this is funny?" And Wynonna says, "How can you not? If you don't laugh, you'll go crazy. And I've been crazy, didn't care for it much." And Willa looks at her and says, "You hate having to do this." And Wynonna says, "Well, what would it make me if I didn't?"
Mm-hmm.
And now we see Waverly telling Wynonna, "You like this too much." Which, like, you know,
That opening sequence, we watch her face just fall further and further every time she shoots someone, and it all starts the same way, and it just ends worse.
And I mean, it was interesting though, because it was what the genie also accused her of. The genie also accused Wynonna of being, you know, of enjoying the kill. And, you know, Wynonna very, very explicitly, you know, said that's not true. You know, you do look the pain in the eye and then you tell it to go F itself. And so I mean, it probably hurt a lot more when Waverly accused her of enjoying killing than when, you know, the genie accused her of enjoying killing. And I still don't think Wynonna does enjoy killing, but I can also understand why somebody might draw that conclusion, since she seems to enjoy it. You know, when she goes out into the woods, she seems to be.
And she makes that comment when they come up on, who's it, Remy? It's like something about it's no fun when they're half dead or something like that. To Rachel.
Yeah, and clearly wasn't like didn't care about Remy at all. Remy was not a living being to her at all.
But
it was to Rachel.
To get through it though, like you gotta, I mean, I'm saying this as if I've done it, I have not, but like you've gotta like put yourself in that situation of like not thinking about that stuff, right? Like putting up that wall and putting up that, like, it's easier to dehumanize them, not that they're humans, but you know what I mean? Like it's easier to see them as the demons than it is to see them as these townspeople who have a life there and are trying to, not all of them, but some of them have their, you know, their lives there. And it's not their fault in some ways that years and years ago they were part of, well, not demons, I guess that's the revenants, but like some of these, you know, it's not, they're in the crossfire. Look at Rosita, like, right? Like it's not necessarily their fault that they're stuck in this loop. But I imagine in order to get up every day and keep doing what you're doing, knowing that it's for the greater good, like there's got to be some sort of desensitizing that you do to yourself to continue on, whether you know you're doing it or not.
And like,
doesn't excuse the killing, obviously, you know. But
and she says, like, she's like, I don't see anybody complaining about being not too dead because I've taken out too many demons.
You know, but I'm gonna, because I want to touch back with what Rita said. That was my favorite quote of the whole, not my favorite quote of the whole episode. It was the most chilling quote of the whole episode when Waverly said, "Sitting on the throne took all my cares away," and that was like heaven. Because, you know, Waverly clearly cares and goes through most of like the whole series worried about people. She's worried about Wynonna. She's worried about Nicole. She's worried about Gus. She's worried about Alice. She's worried about Doc. She's worried about Jeremy. She spends most of her time worrying about the safety of other people. And so having that burden lifted probably is really nice, but it's to not care, like to be indifferent, is probably what's going to help her be like the darkest, because she simply won't care anymore. So you can kill somebody or anything, or they can die and you just don't care. You know, whatever, you know, you just let people live and die. You don't care. It doesn't really matter to you. That's terrifying. And I hadn't, until you were also talking there, Kylie, like that's in many ways then where Wynonna is when it comes to demons. And that's still not a good place to be. You know, to just not care anymore.
Funny, the other day in real life, like legit, I said to my friend, I was like, I wish I just didn't care. Like, because like I think that like there's certain things in our lives that like you were just like, well, it'd be easier if I didn't care. But it's like, is that really what you want, and like what you're saying is like, no, I think that would make you like have a darker thought process to not care, right? Like, so yeah, it is interesting that like how um relatable that can be for people or me.
Well, I think the concept of it can,
Yeah, yeah.
that,
Not
like
the
you said,
angel part, as much as I'd like to think that I am an angel.
the demons, the angel part, maybe not, but that
Yeah.
whole not caring. And I agree with you, Jill, in terms of the chill that went down the spine when she said that. That, yeah, that was like oh, this is so not good, that Doc is the one talking about this whole garden is deceptive, and she's kind of got a little bit of a longing for it, like, well, maybe it's not quite that bad. And it's like, oh, here we go, we're justifying why you want to do what you do in your own head. So that's tough. I mean, the thing that I love, and you all brought it up, wonderful discussion, is because it is such a real, to all of us as viewers, sister relationship, as we've all had with siblings or even close friends. When you know how to push a button and you don't back down from pushing it, that's sometimes more infuriating maybe than even what is said, is when the other person that you trust chooses to tick you off and make you upset. That's another part of it, even beyond the words that are used. Yeah, certainly, referring to Wynonna is kind of becoming like Ward, and Wynonna talking about not having the happily ever after and being sanctimonious asshole and all. It's just fascinating too, because the points you brought up too, talking about Waverly and the Clanton killings. Waverly keeps going back to the I don't remember doing it. And thinking that's different than the fact that Wynonna chose to do it. And like we've been talking about now for several episodes, I don't think we think that's the case. She's so terrified, as we see certainly by the end of the episode, of tapping into that darkness, that she doesn't even want to acknowledge it even exists sometimes.
Mhm.
And I think that's why it partially kind of comes out, is Jolene is so good at it, but she has not learned to manage it, control it, or anything. She has just tried to do her la 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 to life to make it not even be a part of it.
Suppress it, yeah.
Yeah, totally.
When they're in the kitchen at the beginning there, Waverly does say to Wynonna, "What, you're blacking out?" Like, in a very accusing way. I was like, girl, you've been blacking out every time you've done something with your hands. Like, let's talk about gaslighting real quick, shall we? Like, but I don't, it's that sort of, it's that dynamic though, where it
anybody-
truly is like that.
Did anybody else feel like super uncomfortable during that scene, like at the kitchen? Like I felt like very, and again, I don't know if it's like it wasn't accusing, like it wasn't like they're accusing her or whatever, but it felt like I was like, we're focusing on the wrong thing. Like obviously, like drinking is not a good thing and everything, but like it just felt like a weird intervention to me, where I was like, I felt bad for Wynonna because I was like, again, maybe that's just me projecting, but like you just like, I felt like it was, I don't know, it just felt weird to me in that scene where I was like, I feel like they should be maybe taking what she's doing on the shooting part more seriously and less about the drinking part and taking the gun away and stuff. I don't know, it just felt weird. It felt weird for
The
me to
drinking
see
is the
that.
escape. And like, yeah, she's killing, but like I think they had to have taken her gun for her to keep like just stop and like question, like even probably to come to them, because like we don't know how long she's been doing this, and like how long has she been ignoring what, if they've tried to say anything.
I thought that was about the gun, not about the drinking.
I thought it was about both.
Thought about it
I did
first.
too.
I thought it was about both. And then I just made this connection because also, interestingly, Waverly, when she came back inside and was talking to Nicole, she said to Nicole, "I just don't want to lose her." And it just occurred to me that was because of what you're saying, Alyssa. Like that's a little bit of a projection. Like she's afraid of losing herself, and now she's afraid of going dark. She's clearly understands that there's that part of her, and she sees Wynonna slipping down a path that she can see herself perhaps slipping down. And so she was starting to go like, I don't want to see Wynonna going down this path, but also projecting and going, that's the path I may be on as well.
Maybe that's why I felt that way.
I mean, certainly Nicole looked uncomfortable. She did not want to be there.
She was
At
like
all.
all of us.
It was just interesting. Yeah.
She's like, I have to be here. I said I would be.
Nicole asks Waverly if she should stay, which is obviously a really big theme in our show, you know.
For Waverly, yeah.
For Waverly and for Wynonna. Wynonna says that she stays and she fights, and you know, Waverly stays, everyone stays, but she immediately says, no, you have to go. Which is, you know, you understand, like there's responsibilities, not that like anyone has responsibilities on the show on it, but I do think it was just interesting phrasing. And then for the following scene for Waverly to be like, carefree, heaven, right after she's like, no, you gotta go, is a little worrisome.
I wonder if she feels the garden stronger when she's close to the garden.
Well, she said it was like at their place, right? So maybe they've been drawn there, both of
Seems
them.
certainly that they've met a lot more than has been let on
Mhm.
Yep.
throughout
Mhm.
this season. You know,
Yep,
our
she referred
place
to
is
it, our
nothing.
Yeah. Very comfortable language used. Very like, oh, we do this all the time.
And yeah, that was also kind of chilling.
Hmm.
I was thankful it was Doc, because when she's like, come to our place, I'm like, oh no. So it's
But it's supposed to feel like infidelity. It's
Yeah.
supposed to feel like a secret that shouldn't be a secret. Like you're supposed to like have that like pit in your stomach where you're like, you're doing something untrustworthy.
Yeah,
What
because
untrustworthy thing have you done?
Mhm.
Mhm.
She's keeping the whole book from Wynonna.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Even though Wynonna is a big part of her story.
And Nicole, presumably.
Mhm.
And Nicole. Mm-mm.
I hear lying's good for you.
Especially, yeah.
This might be a silly question, especially for this group, but who else knew the moment they had that fight that something horrible was going to happen by the end of the episode?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, aside from feeling bad for them, as soon as that happened, I'm like, oh, this is just setting it up. We are being set up to just be out of our hearts ripped out.
Mm-hmm.
Being set up for
Harmonious
television, right,
for
Tyrion?
me.
And Interesting television.
Yep. I mean, I really just loved that whole interaction with them at the kitchen, or in the kitchen. From that first, like when Waverly was saying, "Oh, you look like," I think you said sad and lonely, and just like the emotions on Wynonna's face, I was like, "Oh, I was like, it's gonna like ramp up and keep going." Oh man, it was great. It was heartbreaking, but yes.
It's like, yes. I'm gonna break up.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that was.
They did do a really good job though at calling back to like core feelings about the characters from season 1, because I don't know if you guys have noticed on Twitter, but there have been kind of some polar opinions about Wynonna individually and about Waverly individually, about Wynonna stepping too far and not being trustworthy, or about Waverly not really being a good sister, partner, friend, sort of being a little more selfish. But then to see Wynonna mourn with Rachel, you know that she's not too far gone.
Mm-hmm.
And Jolene says that they're kin, but you're automatically like right back to Bobo.
Mm-hmm.
And you're like, Waverly has been dealing with this since season 1. Like she's been dealing with this fear of her own darkness since 103. So all of this like pent up stuff isn't new, but I feel like they very intentionally called that back this episode. And I feel like the polar Twitterverse has been a little more quiet.
I've been waiting for that depths line that Bobo says to come into light for 4 seasons. I mean, it's in a song that I wrote. Come on. Like what depths are we talking about? How deep?
And
I
how
want to know just how far down that goes.
and how lucky are we as viewers now that when we get to go back and do rewatches, we can see these breadcrumbs
Yeah.
all the way through.
You're giving me chills.
I mean, like if you think about it, like what has Emily said, like how she pitched it in the beginning, it was like Frozen meets Justified, and like Frozen, the character of Elsa is Waverly, like, you know, so afraid to kind of like that darkness inside of her to come out, and she's been dealing with it her whole life, and for this episode for it to be said aloud.
I think that it was the first time, was it the first time she acknowledged the power inside her? When she said that to Jolene, that I don't want to tap into a power I can't control, I went, oh, so you know it's there.
Yeah.
Interesting.
That line, it broke me.
A lot of lines broke me.
No. That's the first time that she's acknowledged that the power is her own.
Yeah.
It's not someone else's ring. It's not the garden. It's not this. It's not that. It's not like something she doesn't remember. It's not whatever. It's her power.
And it's not that she doesn't like the power. She's afraid she can't control it. It's not like it's a power that I'm afraid of, or it's a power that I fear, or it's a power that I don't want. No, it's a power I can't control. That's the only reason she gave for why she didn't tap into it. Because we've seen other things that she doesn't seem to, again, because she's a little darker than we have been led to believe, that maybe she's like, I kind of like that power.
Yes.
But I'm afraid I can't control it. Which is the only reason I'm not tapping into it. If I thought I could control it, maybe I would tap into it because I kind of like it. Which is
kind of
interesting.
It kind of makes me think of when she said that line to Wynonna about maybe you like it a little too much. That maybe in a way she's saying that to herself because she has all of this power that she's afraid she can't control. But even in which episode where they forgot who they were, and then she's like, yeah, like punch that guy, and I really liked it. Like deep down, she likes this power. But as she starts to become more aware of what all of that means, it's like, what does that say about me if I like this too much? So I don't know.
I went back and watched part of episode 2, I guess, near the end, after she sat on the throne, and I had forgotten that she just flung Wynonna aside without even just boom, and just tossed her. And I remember how shocking it was at the moment, but now coming back, because they never kind of circled back, like, hey, remember when you were on the throne and you could just literally wave a finger and send people flying? Not only could you did. Your own sister.
And as Jolene called her kin or sister, she's the one who flung Wynonna out the door in this episode. Similar powers.
Yeah.
I think for me, one of the most heartbreaking, like what got me the most in this episode was
we're gonna start doing this conversation.
We're gonna do this.
Okay, all right. I was waiting. I've been waiting.
Dancing around it.
It's because, look, I'll take the bullet for the team here. No, it's because you brought up the kin and the sister, that part of things, is that when Wynonna says nobody wants to be an Earp, a Gibson maybe, but not Earp, they always end up alone. And to me, I felt like that's one of the first times that Wynonna has not been like, no, you're an Earp kind of thing to Waverly. It's very much, she's like, oh no, you're a Gibson, I'm an Earp. And so that to me was the most oh.
It's on
Considering the last episode, Waverly referred to her as the Earp sisters. Too.
Yeah. And that's the thing, and it's the first time for me that I was like, oh wait, Wynonna's always been like, no, you're an Earp. through all of that, questioning back in season her to say that. I know, Rita.
No, you were cut out,
I
Kylie.
know.
Yeah, you cut out.
Oh no, I cut out. Oh,
Dramatic pause.
whew. I don't know where I cut out. So basically, it just hurt my heart, is what I'm getting at.
I'm so sad that I didn't get to hear all of that.
Right.
My heart.
I'm sorry.
And
I
even
was
like
gonna
even
say,
with, oh, go ahead, Jill.
I was just gonna say, I was very glad at the argument at the homestead at the beginning. That would have been, if the only thing that could have hit harder than what they said is if Wynonna had brought up that Waverly wasn't even an Earp.
Yeah.
That would have been like an
Mm.
irreparable statement. If she had actually said that to Waverly. But it's interesting, Kylie, that you bring it up, that maybe she was sort of thinking it.
Yeah, I mean that's kind of what I took away from that line, and it just kind of like, for me, it just hit because I was like, she's never really referred to her as a Gibson from what I can remember. Again, maybe Rita or Jess know, but like I don't remember her ever like being like, you're a Gibson. She's always been like, you're an Earp.
Yeah.
So to me, that line just kind of like stuck a knife through my heart a little bit.
The only other line was like that would she alluded to it was in 305 under the influence of Jolene when she calls her half sister, and not Gibson versus Earp.
I think it's
Yeah.
also showing how she's feeling more that separation growing between them as Waverly is moving on to, this new life with Nicole. So I think right now she feels, as far away from her sister as she has, or as she ever has in the past. So it's like, wow, she's not really gonna be like an Earp sister in the way that we were before. Like she's, this connection that we had is, I don't want to say ended because that seems very strong, but like it's just it's ending in the way that it existed previously. So it's changing. So they're not gonna be the same, Earp sisters, just the two of them, because now there are other dynamics in play. So it's like things are changing.
Yeah.
Do you think that she says that for her own like coping, or do you think that she says that to benefit giving Waverly space, or benefiting Waverly's independence, or for her own emotional well-being? That separation.
I think a little of both, but in that moment, I think more for herself, a little bit more for herself. Yeah.
And I didn't necessarily take that the statement originally as like saying Waverly's a Gibson and she's not an Earp, as opposed to thinking like that was a way for her to also justify why she's alone.
Yeah.
Like Earps end up alone. It's not my fault. Waverly's lucky. She's not an Earp. She gets to be a Gibson.
That's how I took it.
And so it was more, in some ways, it was more a reflection on her and her own feelings, like she feels cursed and she's just never gonna, she doesn't get a happily ever after because she's an Earp. Waverly does because she's a Gibson.
Yeah, that's why I took it. And then my brain also went, like they said Gibson, they haven't in a long time. Does that mean like, is the Gibson line also some kind of demonic, angelic, magical line? And this mixed with, her angel dad, like how has this morphed into what we see at the end of the episode?
I think we're going to be hearing a lot about the Gibsons in the next couple episodes.
Are Jolene and Waverly twins? Imagine. Oh,
But like, are they?
are they? That's what I mean. Are they
Wait,
not?
I think they are.
Like,
Are they not?
They didn't actually both gestate in the same womb, but
came to be at the same time, right? Isn't that what?
Yeah.
Like a balance of light and dark, where Waverly was a light, she came like Jolene came
Right.
in luck. But
I have a question that sort of pertains to the Gibsons and the beginning of the episode and Waverly making some very like pointed statements that I think are actually like blatantly untrue. But they make like it's all, hopefully I don't freeze. Let's find out. Okay, so the whole thing with Gibson's never ending up alone. Gus's partner died. Michelle's partner died. Like, all of the Gibsons that we know are definitely alone except for Waverly. And even now it's like, is she a Gibson or is she not? But then when she's talking to Jolene, she says, of Wynonna, I've been by her side the whole time. About Wynonna. I don't think that's true. But maybe it's my perspective. Oh shoot, there was another one. I can't find it.
Well, I think it's the other way around, but I think Jolene pointing out all of the tally marks on the wall is very telling because there's a lot of things that Waverly has been scared of. And there's a lot of times where like fear can make you not act in a lot of ways. And I think that in trying to be helpful or be by Wynonna's side, she's inevitably like hurt Wynonna. Wynonna's had to do a lot more acting on things for the sake of them both than Waverly putting forth effort due to her own fear of herself.
Yeah, no, for sure. The last one I just found it is she tells Doc it's a long story about why Wynonna doesn't have Peacemaker. It's not a long story. It's because she took it.
Yeah.
Like, how long is that, dude? Like,
Took it.
I found that entertaining.
Right,
I was
and
like,
even
"It's a long
lying and
story."
saying that like she was lying and saying that she was okay, but then telling the truth about Wynonna not being okay.
So to go back to something that was brought up there, the whole Jolene and Waverly being kin, for want of a better term. Yeah, there you go, Alyssa. What do we think about as Waverly pushes Jolene through the coat hook and then gets the same wound on her back?
Yeah.
Well,
No.
to me, like one of the things that I wrote down was that like it felt like Jolene couldn't harm Waverly. She's always putting the knife, and both times she's putting the knife to her throat, threatening her, but she's not actually ever following through with it. And so that kind of sort of moment where you see the injury and the injury, it's kind of like, okay, does she already know that like you can't have one without the other? Like they can't, I mean, like obviously Jolene didn't die or get taken away like we thought she was. So she was alive the whole time. So we don't know if like she didn't get injured there. So it's not like Waverly got injured, you know what I mean? So it's interesting. I don't know.
I think it's like the Doc Constance thing, because doesn't she say in 305, like when Waverly has the knife, she's like, I can't do it. You have to do it for yourself. And so like to me, I took it as like Jolene, like this whole time was wanting her to hurt, wanting Waverly to hurt Jolene so it would hurt Waverly. Like she was enticing her. And so like my notes, I'm just reading my notes. So like knowing that if Waverly hurt Jolene, she could go in and like physically like pulls out the wing to show her like this is who you truly are, type of thing.
Yeah, I definitely think that Jolene was goading her into hurting Jolene because she could not physically harm Waverly. So she had to get Waverly to harm herself one way or another.
Right. And going back to something also Kylie said, you know, Jolene says, you know, when Bolshard died, his vines released me, but then you opened up the garden and all this fog rolled in, trapping me here. But now after everything I've been through, we're going to have so much fun. Like if Bolshard dying released Jolene, could that have also released others? And my first thought was like, could it release dolls? But also, how does she know the like Bolshar died or like stuff about the garden, like she should know because she wasn't there unless she's Eve. Yeah. Right? Yeah, that's what I was getting
Oh
at.
my god. This is the best.
Yeah.
Oh,
I
man.
had that.
Well played.
Well,
We were getting there, and
yes.
you know how I feel about Eve.
Rita, how do you feel about Eve?
Everyone is Eve.
Yes, there's at least 4 people in this episode where I think could have been Eve. But yeah, like how could she have known if there isn't some other thing happening?
Well, one quick thought before Rita can go on the Eve train.
I'm good. I had my
If if Waverly and Jolene have this connection, and the harm to one to the other is somehow in the manifestation of how Jolene exists. Is she always connected to Waverly? So anything Waverly knows, she knows. Is that why she knows all these things?
But then why doesn't Waverly know anything about Jolene?
Because she hasn't tapped into it yet. If that's where we're going.
Mm.
That that
I
was
like
my
here for it.
Mhm.
Tell me more.
Yeah, that makes sense a little bit, I think.
Yeah, I can't. I should have watched the episode Jolene again, but
I want to watch.
I don't-
Pulled Waverly into the garden.
did she indicate that she had like knowledge of what was going on in Waverly's life?
Well, because she knew like who Nicole was. She knew stuff about them in order to draw them in, right? In Jolene, that episode, like she used them to get to Waverly in some ways. So she must have at least known who they all are.
True, and she knew about the broken beer tap somehow.
Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah, I didn't even think
So
about
she
that.
must have had some.
She must have had some pretty
It's
intimate
the
knowledge.
It's the twin thing. They can hear
That's
each
true.
other. Sorry, Rita, you have lots to say.
No, I'm thinking about, other stuff.
Didn't mean to derail your train.
No, that's all. All I had to say was Eve. That was it. That's my only
That was
note.
the best reveal. Best
Mhm.
reveal.
Wait, I have a
Well-
Terry. Aren't you a twin?
What?
Don't you have a twin?
I do. I have a twin brother.
Yeah. Can you twin it up for us real quick about the mind meld thing?
I think that like happens more with identical twins. So it's like
Okay.
not quite the same. It's fraternal.
Okay. So
Another-
nothing.
Nah,
I think in
sometimes,
general, though,
sometimes.
siblings. I think in general, siblings have. I mean, we see it with Wynonna and Waverly in the show too, right? They like. I think in general, siblings have that like gut feeling of other siblings. Like, I don't know. I feel it sometimes with my siblings when we're not hating each other.
So going back to a comment, I can't remember who brought it up, the hashtags, the hash marks on the wall. Do you think that's actually what they reported that Jolene said them to be? Do you think that's actually true? Or was she just once again pushing Waverly's button?
Jolene always lies.
Yeah.
Always.
Did anybody take the chance to try to count them all? Because I did, and I got 355. I don't know.
What?
Yeah,
Oh my
I
god!
don't know how accurate because there's some blur. But if it is,
That's-
that's a lot of deaths.
Definitely.
A lot of
I
blood.
killed a
Wait,
mountain of demons for you. to-
Mhm.
they're not all demons.
Not all demons.
Not all-
But I
Mhm.
don't believe, I just don't believe, I don't believe Jolene, but I believe she knows that Waverly will believe it.
Yeah. Because the thing I found fascinating as I kind of thought about it was thinking back to the Jolene episode. She just constantly kept beating down Waverly, self-doubt, doubting herself, the relationships to try to really push her. Excuse me. But this time, Waverly is the one standing up to it, not taking any crap, trying to push it back. But all she's really doing is throwing more fuel on the fire for Jolene. Every
Mhm.
time she kind of tries to tell her that's not true, or yes, I was there, or whatever, Jolene always has the ammunition to come back at her, much like the hash marks. It was Waverly that brought those up first. Trying to be snarky about, oh, you're tracking your days here. and then she's able to spin them back at. So it's like this time, I mean, as a viewer, I was like, yeah, you tell her, Waverly, you go for it. And the more I rewatch this episode, I'm like, oh, you kept making it worse every time you opened your mouth. You should have just sat there quietly and been cute, and she wouldn't have had any ammunition.
Yeah. Like Jolene, she knew exactly what to say for Waverly to question everything she's ever, been through and thought of.
And almost all of it was in reaction to what Waverly said. It's not like Jolene had a whole bunch of things to bring up. She just waited for Waverly to say something and then spun it in a bad way.
And I mean, like, she was so rude. You've got all this talent and you're using it for wedding planning, just like, and I'm sure, again, you have, like, everything Jolene says, I completely and always interpret as that's something that Waverly already hears in her mind.
Yep.
This isn't new information to Waverly. It's her biggest doubt that Jolene actually said that. Waverly's wondering, what am I doing? And this is the second time somebody gave a jab at her about planning her wedding. Wynonna did it at the very beginning. She said, have fun planning your wedding, you sanctimonious asshole.
Yeah.
And now Jolene is like doing, what the hell are you doing planning a wedding? You've got all this power and all this talent. And clearly also doubts her own role in not in Wynonna's life, but doubts her own role. Actually, it's sort of like everything that Wynonna told her at the start, like, I have to do this to protect you because you're not doing anything to protect you. You've got a happily ever after. And then Jolene essentially spits that all back out at her and says, you haven't lifted in a single angelic finger to help her out. And she's crying every night and you're giggling in the arms of Nicole. Which that threw me back to the Halloween episode, because that episode ended on Wynonna's very sad face all by herself at the fire, and you hear Waverly giggling in the background. And so, like, Jolene just spit at her everything she had already, like, her worst fears, everything she already kind of believed, and it was said out loud.
And
Jolene sucks.
right, and you can see the journey that Waverly goes through in all of those scenes, and just like her facial expressions. Like, I mean, I have like so many times in my notes, just like there's no words, but you can see that pain that Waverly's going through, like internally questioning herself, is what I'm hearing aloud the truth about me. So powerful.
I do think there was one big difference, though, in this interaction with Jolene than the last time, which makes me think maybe she's Eve, but, I don't want to toot that horn too loudly. But, and it was something that Kevin said, actually. So in 305, we see Jolene, her main goal is to, like, beat Waverly down so that she diminishes and so that she becomes nothing. But this time around, the things that she says are in reaction to Waverly's words, because I think that she, if it's Eve or if it's Jolene, whatever, their goal is to get Waverly angry enough to become dark. They want to weaponize all of these terrible feelings to become an identity that is not true. So the goal wasn't to make Waverly feel so low that she becomes nothing. The goal was to make Waverly feel like the power she has been wasted, and that the wasted power could have been used years ago to better everyone. And in fact, it's just hurt everyone, that she's not doing anything. All of those deaths and all of the everything. And you see Wynonna be flung out the door right after Waverly is like, I just want to go home. And Wynonna comes in her home. She's home for like 2 seconds. And Jolene blasts her out the door and pretty much says she's dead. Like, you have no home. You have done nothing and now it's gone again. And that's what makes her like enact her power. She doesn't enact her power out of like pride or out of wanting to have the power. She enacts it out of like absolute despair, which is exactly what she wanted.
Jolene and Eve in the same room.
Yeah, I mean,
Just saying.
that would be a power I wouldn't want to face. Certainly, those two.
I do want to ask, Rita, do you think you said like Waverly basically becoming this identity that isn't true or that isn't her? Do you think that it's that, or is it that it's just different? Because all of these things, it's not that Waverly isn't, not that she like isn't dark, but like that's just a part of her. The way that I kind of think of it is that these are the parts of her that she has suppressed for so long. So it's not that they're not true, because everyone has the darkness, the light, it's just, what do you do with them? How do you manage them? How do you let, the different ones rise when they need to or fall when they need to? So it's like, is it that you think that it's not her, or that it's just the other parts?
No, I think that it's like more mislabeled. Not that it's not true, because all of the, she does take ownership of her power, and she does take ownership finally of like all of kind of the different facets of herself, good and bad. You see her accept that maybe she's hurt some people that she loves, but she's also accepted the power that she's also been denying. So it isn't, maybe true isn't the right word, but being able to, and I don't like the word label either, because that's very definitive, but being able to, manipulate something or put like a toxicity into it to where now it's something that could be good if you are given the ability to identify it yourself.
Mhm.
But if you're told this is how it is and this is what it is, and that like that's how you discover it, then it,
Manifest that
if you
way.
name it a battle, it will be a battle.
So ultimately, Jolene clearly wanted Waverly to go dark.
Oh yeah.
Wanted this power to come out. The one question I do wonder, and it turns out, and Jolene also knew, though it was a little, I mean, interestingly, Jolene spit Nicole all the way out of the fog. Like,
Was it her?
Jolene though. Was
Yeah.
it Jolene,
Was
though?
it?
We're all like,
but if and then when and Waverly also saw Nicole get thrown out there, and she didn't go dark and to save Nicole. Only when Wynonna was thrown out there did she finally go, that's it, I'm done. Whatever it takes, I'm gonna save Wynonna, no matter what, even if that means tapping into this power I don't that I don't think I can control. And then
Yeah.
her first act, of course, was to kill Jolene. Like,
Right.
boom. She could have left Jolene alive, and she's not a threat, but no, she's like, and you're done. I don't need you. You mean nothing to me. I'm just gonna kill you.
Is
like-
Jolene not a symbol anymore? Jolene, so far, I feel like in this show, in this story.
Oh, gee.
no, in the story, what?
No.
You're back. You're back.
Okay.
Jolene in the story, what?
Okay. Teasing my internet. So, Jolene thus far has been more of an idea. I'm waiting to see if this works. Jolene has not been necessarily an entity unto herself. She has been a symbol and a metaphor more than anything else. So Waverly has now taken that entity or metaphor or whatever else it might be, whatever else Jolene might be, and has managed to control her power enough to decide, nope, you're done. So what does
I
that
don't-
mean?
I
moving
don't think she
forward?
was in control at all. I mean, like,
Really?
she was in control, but she wasn't. It all manifested there, that notion of not caring, right? Like she had talked about before. She, like, when she sat on the throne, she's like, I don't have any worries anymore. And that was fantastic. And she came up and said to Jolene, you mean nothing to me. Like, there was no feelings whatsoever. Killing Jolene, letting Jolene live, didn't matter, but she chose to kill her. And I wouldn't say, like, Jolene has been a symbol for mental health and mental illness. You can't kill them, right? In, like, as a symbol, that's a terrible ending for Jolene, because you can't kill anxiety and depression like Waverly did. But you can, it's which is also another reason that it just, I mean, that's why Waverly was just effing terrifying at the end. She simply doesn't care if anything lives or dies at all. And it will be interesting to see if she cares if Wynonna lives or dies.
Still Waverly.
Is it though?
Is it? Yeah.
Without Jolene, is that still Waverly?
Without
Yes.
Jolene? Yeah.
See, because
That's all. I mean, Jolene comes from she's not a separate entity in that symbolic way. It's the voices in your head that are already part of your head.
And even I don't know if we want to go here yet, but even in that last scene, the way that she says, your journey is over, Wynonna Earp. Like, there's no feeling in what she's saying. Very reminiscent.
Total attachment.
Very reminiscent of when she was on the throne, of even reminiscent of how Julian speaks when he realizes, like, that when Charlie realizes he's Julian, and that, like, I have the line that he said. He's like, come child, there's no time for petty humanity, and even less for the doing of beasts. Like, the cadence, like the tone, it's all very similar.
Telling Jolene she will not bear witness. You're just like, ooh.
Yeah.
Waverly go.
Yeah. Well, and she said, you're going to destroy the world. And she goes, yeah, but you won't be here to see it. And you're just like, golly. Holy.
And like,
loves it.
What's that?
I said some part of me loves it.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I mean, it's fantastic storytelling. It's wonderful, but it's terrifying. She's terrifying.
Well, for me, it's wonderful storytelling for a story I don't care so much about. The fact I care so much means as much as I'm appreciating the story, I'm like, no. Your journey is over, Wynonna Earp, and mine has just begun, complete with dark wings.
But the fact that she says Earp, she doesn't just say Wynonna, is for me the biggest key. Is like, if it was Waverly speaking, she would just say Wynonna. She wouldn't say Wynonna Earp. So for me, that was the biggest, like, oof.
So that's why I'm saying this last scene sets it up as Earp Sister versus Earp Sister. Because Wynonna's not going to be chill with this.
Nope.
Earp versus Gibson? Not Earp versus Earp, maybe.
And even going like in that last scene, the way that Wynonna looks at Waverly, like, she looks terrified, and not because not she's not afraid of Waverly, but she's like terrified of like that she failed her, that like her light in this world is not there anymore.
So the promise she had to make, I feel like we've danced around that interaction between the two of them before Waverly becomes dark, when she basically asks Wynonna to put her down if it comes to it. And now when Wynonna sees dark Waverly, it's like when Waverly first asked her, it seemed like Wynonna's like, it's not gonna come to that. And then when she actually sees her, it's like, wait, this could be a very real possibility, because this is not my sister in the way that I've known her before. Like, who is this person? So
Especially with talk earlier in the episode of how, like, you know, Wynonna kills the demon. She kills the bad guys. And if it wasn't for her killing those bad guys, the people she loves wouldn't be safe. So yeah, like what happens if her sister becomes the bad one?
Yep.
Earp Sister versus Earp Sister.
Mhm.
I'm dying on this hill. Okay, that's what what
Yep.
it's setting up.
For sure.
And I'm imagining, yes, Peacemaker getting pointed at Waverly and lighting up.
But
Uh.
Wynonna doesn't even have Peacemaker right now.
She will. We've seen it in the preview.
She will.
Yeah, we've seen the preview. Yeah. See, okay, yeah.
There are no previews here.
Yeah, see, like all since Friday, my brain has gone back and forth so many times because I'm like, well, there's things in the preview that we haven't seen. So like Waverly in the outfit before she turns running to Nicole, like Nicole saying, "Where you go, I go, remember." So it's like, is just because Waverly is dark, does that mean she is evil? Or like, does it mean like how she was in the garden with that like no humanity, where she's there to do whatever job she's there to do.
Yes. Yes.
And
Well, the whole show's about making choices and like, do the choices make you evil? Which is like what everyone has been asking Wynonna all freaking forever. Is like, even Waverly in the beginning of this episode is pretty much like, your choices are making you bad, essentially, if you like dumb it down to no to nothing. But then do you have that hope for Darkwing Waverly? We'll just call her Darkwing Waverly.
I like that.
But not. Did she choose poorly?
Questions.
She choose poorly. That's a good question.
Why is the book say Gibson? And is Michelle the queen of the demon rodeo for
A reason?
Yeah.
Just gonna finish off the questions.
There you go.
Well, if
Like-
as far as the book being named Gibson, if we think about it, if this is the garden, I mean, this was Julian's area, right? So at that point, Waverly was Julian's daughter. So the garden would think of her as a Gibson, wouldn't it?
Yeah, because that's her blood. Like,
Mm-hmm.
he doesn't have her blood.
Yeah. No found.
We don't know, and we don't know Julian's last name. She's technically,
She's like Julian. They don't have last names,
she's definitely technically a Julian
right?
or a Bobo, I guess. We don't
And
really know.
we've talked about it in our chat, but like now that Waverly has in some ways like stepped into who she's supposed to be, will now things be written in her book?
Yes. That's what I was thinking, and that maybe now that she's become Darkwing Waverly, like maybe they'll have another scene at some point where she goes back to the stairs with the book, and lo and behold, there are words and sentences and a whole story written there now. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm gonna think that you have to be an angel to read the angel book.
What kind of angel? A risen or a fallen? Does it matter?
One that cannot hold Peacemaker too.
But it also burned her in 212. Like, yes, she was able to use it because like Wynonna was there, like almost like making Peacemaker shoot in from Waverly, but like then it burned her at the end.
We also don't definitively know that she can't hold Peacemaker after the transformation. We know that it burned her before, but not after the complete transformation. So that would be interesting to see if there is a scene with her holding Peacemaker.
And I think I had this one of the theories of that for the Earp Sister Feels, not the Earp Sister Feels, that's this, but the fire pit that we had, that one of the questions we answered was, what about the blank book? I am sort of the opinion that I don't ever want it to have words now. Because like the show is also, you know, it's about fate and destiny, and sometimes life chooses for you. And I said, but it's also about choices. And if your book is already written, you don't really have any choices. And that seems like that would suck. I sort of like the idea of just going like, no, you better start writing, because it's your story. So you go write it.
Yeah.
And wouldn't that be just so thematic for Waverly to just want the book to be already written and filled out?
The answer's all there.
Dang it, Joe.
Nope. There are no easy answers here, Waverly. You got to go make them on your own.
Write your own story.
You're the only one that can write your story.
Write your story. Yep.
But I suspect there will be words, but maybe not. I don't know if they'll be good words.
The interesting part.
Waverly won't go into the fog.
All right. Well, coming back to the fog.
Yes.
Yes.
Coming back to the fog. Near the very end, when Wynonna is basically dying, the fog dissipates. Nicole got, quote, thrown out of the fog.
Safely,
Who's controlling the fog?
right? Waverly, yeah.
I was just like, Rita, I was going to go Eve.
Yeah, get a joke, you think?
Eve. Somebody
Who was
please make that into a gift that we
I-
can use.
Here we go. Final answer, Rita.
Yeah.
Double bonus Jeopardy. Interesting thought in terms of what that might mean.
Yeah, because it continues to pull away. Like the more Waverly comes forward, when she pulls her wing, like her wings are out.
But do you think it's like the fog is closing in on Waver this whole time? Like it until she finally like lets loose. It's like the fog is kind of just like closing in and closing in and closing in on her. And in this case, taking over the town. It's kind of got a bit of a WandaVision situation going on.
And I guess we always thought that that the garden, that she had to sit on the throne to keep Eve in the garden. Though Eve was tossed out of the garden while she was
In the garden.
I think she was on, I can't remember now if she was actually on the throne when Doc, you know, booted Jeremy through one of those doors. But maybe actually they need the guardian there to keep the fog in the garden. And now that there's no guardian, it's the fog that's escaping the garden. And now that since she is the guardian, she can control it. Because that's what she went to, you know, that's what the guardian does, is control this.
Oh yeah, by taking the power and using it, she now can. Yeah.
Well, the blood stuff that was happening in the garden, was that also to hold back the fog too? Then, in some ways, like that whole part,
The
with
machine.
the machine.
I thought that was like a containment for Eve, because as soon as angel blood is used, or if they didn't put blood, like that's when Eve was able to move.
Right.
I maintain that Eve is just the fog.
Like the monster in Lost. Just mysteriously.
Fog monster number 2, yeah.
It really has the fog, so.
She's a shapeshifter. She could be a fog.
Has also a sash for being the nicest person in purgatory, and I have yet to see evidence of her being the nicest person in purgatory. I do love Waverly. Let me just say that to you.
When did Waverly hurt you?
We haven't spoken.
Let's wait to earn fake sashes than to, you know, talk about your feelings. So Waverly's like, I want a sash.
Can I bring up a totally random side scene that gave me some feels in this whole episode? and it's so random, but the Rachel asking why to be like Wynonna, and how no one's ever asked Wynonna to be like Wynonna, but like everybody wants to be like, she said it before, everybody wants to be like Waverly, nobody wants to be like Wynonna. And like that moment for me was one of the best moments of the episode, of like, you could just see it, like the look on her face and like the way that Mel plays it, of like, you're asking to be like me, like you want to be like me. And then like just the excitement she kind of got like in those few scenes or couple scenes there where she got to teach her like to sneak and like that sort of stuff. Like I don't know, that's one of my favorite scenes in the episode. And I know it's not depressing Earp sister stuff, but it was like a cool moment, because I don't think Wynonna ever sees her as someone that anybody would ever want to be like, right? And to have that moment where you have this young girl who, well, not thrown your daughter, you've lost your daughter and had her being given away, and you've got this young girl who's looking up to her being like, I want to be like you. She's stolen her jacket before. She's like, and like, I just think that was a really interesting turning point for Wynonna, because she also, as we saw, helped Wynonna kind of look at these demons as humans, right? Like, so I don't know, that scene really stuck with me a lot when I watched it. It was like a very interesting moment and pivotal moment for Wynonna, of like having someone want to be like her when everyone's always told her, you're the fuck up, right? Like, you're the loose screw in this whole scenario. And to have somebody actually want to be like her, I just felt like was so interesting.
And she's felt like the demons had human qualities. Like, she's humanized them before as well.
For sure.
But just like in her adolescence, like she's also, now I love dolls forever.
Yes,
Dolls also pushes the humanity out of her job. Like her job as like the heir, which he very much sees as like a job that you can just clock in and out of, like you come to work, you do your thing. And he like dehumanizes sort of like the demon killing aspect of it. So even in her like newly powerful life, people sort of, I don't know, push all of her good qualities down into, I don't know, mud. I think that she sees it in Rachel, though, when it was very much like Shorty when she's like with Casey, when Rachel is with Casey and like trying to, I don't know, hope that he's not dead and sort of just like him comfortable. It really reminded me of like the scene where Wynonna has to kill Shorty, the first human that she kills.
Lots of parallels now.
Rachel's not going to be happy that Wynonna let Billy drag her into that bog.
She plays dolls there too. She lies to Rachel.
Lies to Rachel, yeah.
Just like how Dolls is the first one to shoot Willa, and he's also the one with Shorty who waited in the distance to sort of see how it would go when it was all still like an unknown thing. So she kind of plays Dolls again in not telling Rachel the whole truth to make sure that the job gets done.
Which plays in that both of these sisters would clearly do a whole lot of bad things for each other. When it
that we
comes
won't see,
down
right? We won't see that.
I think we will. I think we have.
We won't, right?
I think it's set up to.
My mind goes back and forth so much with that. I think it's because I don't want to have to see that, but at the same time I want to see that.
I want to see that.
I don't.
So funny for me, and I know this might not be everyone, and I'm pretty sure it's not everyone's take on this season, but for me, I've found myself, I mean, we can tell by these talks, growing more fond of how Wynonna's growing this season, more so than Waverly's growth. But that's, I think, supposed to be how I'm supposed to feel by watching this season. Like, in my mind, I feel like watching Wynonna become. It's funny because she's not going like becoming more human, but you kind of see her journey a little bit. I don't know. It's to me, it's like one's going one direction, the other one's going in the very opposite direction, and so it's been fascinating for me to watch and realize that like I've been this season siding more with Wynonna than ever over Waverly, and I don't know if that's intentional, that you're supposed to feel that way as the two themselves are separating. Like you're supposed to also kind of have that feeling if it's done purposefully that way, or if I just personally am feeling that way. But it's been interesting to me that I've cared more about Wynonna's journey this season than I have Waverly's.
I think Waverly's been two very different people this season. Like, she's getting in touch with her dark side, and there's times when she's really dark, and she's also super in love and very happy and light. So we're seeing I think I agree. Like, I think Wynonna's journey is more of a straight line, and Waverly's journey is just this.
Yeah.
Because there's this whole other half of her that she hasn't explored yet. That she will soon.
It's coming.
It's coming.
So
Yeah.
Nicole says to Wynonna, I don't know if I'm frozen. I might be.
Nope. Go.
Okay. No. Nicole says to Wynonna that she couldn't the only thing she couldn't endure is you getting killed to save her.
Now she's
Now you're frozen.
I told you.
You're back.
I'm back.
We heard that
Am
the
I?
only thing you couldn't endure is to save her. Then you cut out.
The only thing that she couldn't endure. Every time I talk, it gives me a message. It says, "Shut up."
You're going to need to get a pad
talk, and then
like
I'll
Rita,
talk
and
over
going to have to write it all down.
I'm
going to have to hold up
Get me a
flashcards.
slate.
Right.
Oh man. Little House on the Prairie. Let's do this. No, it's the whole idea that everyone is communicating to these two systems they are not able to say to each other. For me,
Yes.
I'm really hoping all these faces are because you can hear what I'm saying, not because you're waiting to hear the end.
No, it's an excellent point. I mean, we're so focused that, well, I'll speak for myself, but I'm so focused on when the Earp sisters are together and what they're doing. But you're right, they're not really, we've said this for a while, not really communicating with each other, but everyone else around them is communicating. But it doesn't come, the conduit doesn't go through them. That's part of the fascinating part, certainly about this season.
Odd disconnect this
Rachel
whole season.
grabbing Wynonna's hand to hold the walkie so that Nicole hears what she says and then, gives her like the Waverly of it all, I guess, I feel like is the perfect like weird chain of Waverly to Wynonna communication.
They both want each other's last names instead of the ones that they have.
True.
Which they've not said to each other, but they have hinted around in conversation or been like, I don't fit this thing that
I'm impressed.
So-
None of us have cried. It's not over, but I'm impressed.
Well, and does anyone want to kind of take that stab at where do we go from here? What do you see happening come next episode?
I may be crazy, but I still am not convinced Waverly's going full bad.
Same.
I think it's a deception of a cliffhanger And I think that she definitely has a lot of darkness in there, but I'm not convinced she's gonna go full baddie. I still think Eve is gonna be full bad for the rest, like for the last bit of this part, or something else. But I do not think that Waverly is going to be the full bad.
And I think to go off of that, I think Waverly is going to be able to defeat the big bad.
Yeah.
Like, you know, and why are her wings dark? Like, is that a misdirection? Because like, you know, there's a lot of bird imagery throughout the series, and a lot of birds, they're born darker, and they, as they grow up, they get lighter. And it's like,
I just think that it's going to come back to choosing how you use what you're given.
yeah.
And I don't believe that Waverly is going to go full bad. I think that there's still a part of her that is going to take this power and use it in a way that we wouldn't expect. I just think it's too, for this writing crew, I feel like it's too on the nose if she is the baddie. I think that like there's something else at play, and I'm hopeful. Maybe I'm just being like optimistic here, and you know, you have two sisters. One maybe is a little bit lighter right now than the other one in terms of light versus dark, but I just think that they can work together, and that there's a choosing how you use what you're given. Could be wrong, and she could be the full bad, but that's my little take.
I hope you're right.
I don't think she's going. I think she'll figure out. Well, there are two theories. One is she's going to have to sacrifice it. She's always wanted to be special, always, and now she's an angel, and a dark one at that. Maybe the idea is you go back to being a regular human. You're not an angel. You're not the guardian. You're just Waverly Earp. The end. And that's how you save Wynonna.
So it's a choice.
So you have to give up all this power and all this specialness that you finally got after your whole life of wanting it. You have to give it up if you want to save Wynonna.
I like that.
And I think she would.
And that's like to go off of that, like the beginning, kind of where we're at now is like with the last words, like we kind of see her want to take the burden away, but maybe through what's going to happen, she realizes that she has to give it all away. Oh my God, there's so much.
And I could also see it ending where
I'm not guessing anymore.
Like I could also see it ending where that she's starting to integrate that there's still this part of her that's very, very dark, and they're all gonna have to be a little leery of her for a while and not anger her. Don't taunt Happy Fun Ball, because you just don't know when the claws will come out and be killed because of it. I think there's gonna have to be a major sacrifice on somebody's part.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
I don't think that necessarily means death, though I wouldn't be surprised if
Bye Peacemaker. That's my theory.
Peacemaker?
Yes.
Spent all season trying to get it, only to be ruled by it. But my thought is that she's going to come to not need it or want it by the end of it.
Mm-hmm.
What if Peacemaker went dark and it just started shooting people?
What if Peacemaker has never been light?
It's very possible that except Peacemaker. Well, he's playing the long game then, because it's been shooting a lot of baddies.
Why did Willa think that baby Waverly had something wrong with her?
Look, Willa knew all along. Clearly, they should just listen to Willa.
The only thing that these sisters, all three, have in common is their mom.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think there's anything particularly demonic about Wynonna, which is a strange thing to say. Like, I think there's something particularly demonic about Willa and now Waverly. or at least a very, very dark side. And I don't think Wynonna has that dark side.
But that's what I love about this show, because everyone thinks it is Wynonna that's dark.
Right.
And she's not.
She's
She's
the one that
light.
does.
She's light. Oh. Sorry, I had to get that out.
Demon Rodeo is my whole takeaway from season 4 is Demon Rodeo.
All right.
Well, are there any topics we didn't cover before we wrap? Anybody really wants to get out there?
The Clanton air and the Earp air working together.
Mm-hmm.
Loved it.
I don't know how closely we'd call it working, but
Well.
yes, okay. Not killing each other.
Not killing each other
Yet.
yet.
Cleo doesn't care,
Yeah.
allegedly.
Well, I'm sure, again, it's Wynonna Earp. We got 2 episodes to the end of the season. You know, buckle up, Buttercup doesn't totally cover it. You know,
Nope.
it's going to be a ride and a half.
Yeah.
Well, hopefully you folks enjoyed our wandering discussions, rants, rabbit holes, aha moments. As always, it's a blast and learn so much more every time we get a chance to talk to everybody. So hopefully you folks enjoyed that. As always, feel free to leave comments here on YouTube. Some of you folks, regulars, give us some great insights. Keep them coming. We always love learning. So yeah, please do. And we're looking forward to being back to talk about the next one next week. So I think on that note, we will wrap up and say again, a big thank you to all of you. Keep Earping, keep having fun here, and we will catch you all soon. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.